Hey everybody, out here in the Mojave Desert, just west of Mojave, about a mile. Another abandoned adventure. You can see this facility behind me. This was once the Revere Extruders Aluminum Extrusion Plant. I actually worked here. It was my first job when I got out of high school in 1977. It's been closed since the late 80s, I think. But anyway, go in there and give you a walk around. There's not much left in there, but I can show you where things used to be and talk about what it used to do and how I didn't enjoy working there. It's really, really windy, as usual. Right here, it's rarely ever not windy in this location. It's right at the back of the mountains. There's a reason that all those windmills are back there. It's not because of calm weather. Anyway, I hope the audio quality isn't too awful bad. Follow me through this plant. See what's up in there. Well, this was this is where the offices were. There were a lot of people who worked in the offices. They really did in here was they did offices, payroll, stuff like that. It's all empty in here. So the skateboarders made a pretty cool place out of it. I was never in here, not once. The whole time I worked here, I never needed to come into the offices. The whole thing's made out of cinder block. Nothing really in any of these rooms but crushed up cinder blocks. Oops. This looks like it was maybe a little covered place. I don't know, maybe just another office. I thought maybe it was where the people would come out and have lunch or something, but looks like it caught fire and roof collapsed. This is actually, I'm not a big fan of graffiti on buildings and things that are being used, but these old places like this isn't bothering anybody, and sometimes they do a pretty good job of it. Just more offices. Hey, somebody likes Trump, likes the fact that he, never mind. And that's looking back into where the plant itself was. I graduated from high school on Tuesday. I think it was a Tuesday, June 6, 1977. We went to Mammoth the next day, or maybe the day after. Yeah, we went to Mammoth on Thursday morning. We raced the Mammoth Mountain motocross, and we came home Sunday night, and I came here and went to work the following Monday morning. And I was wholly unprepared for this kind of work, but I got used to it pretty quickly. I was young and strong back and a weak mind, and that's all they needed out here. And there were a washroom, or after work, when we were done, we'd come in and wash up, and it was a restroom as well, but it had showers in it if you wanted to take a shower. It had a great big round thing we could wash your hands with, the deal you stepped on the floor, and the water came out it had a big round piece in the middle, and water would come out all around it whenever whoever was stepping on it. So, but that's what was in here. That was just the hallway into the front office. And you know what? Maybe this was the washroom. Yeah, this was the washroom. There's the, that was the centerpiece of it right there. There's old busted up toilets and stuff in here all over the place. So my memory is failing me after all these years. No graffiti. And anyway, this was the business end of the plant right here, but I'm going to start out here. It's going to be outside. I hope the wind doesn't screw everything up. But that was a cooling tower for water they used for various purposes there. That cooled that off. This was the furnace house, and what they did out here, there was right here at this end, there was a huge furnace. And down at that end, the trucks would come in and they would deliver. The trucks would deliver these big blocks of aluminum. They were all piled up out there at the end of the house. And they would bring them over here. This was a big open face furnace. And they would put those blocks of aluminum in there and melt them. And then they would, on that end right there, once they came out, they would be in like 8-inch diameter, 6 or 8-inch diameter aluminum billets that were about 30 feet long. Take them out here, they'd let them cool for a little out here, and they would pick the aluminum billets up with the forklift and drive them. Well, they must have been, couldn't have been any longer than this door right. So this is the door they brought them in. They would bring them in here, and right here was a big rack that they would put them on, and it had a saw, and the guy would cut those billets into about 3-foot sections, and he was called the billet man. The little lights are all still hanging out in here. And they would take those billets, and right here in this area where these holes are, and then over here where these similar holes are, arranged a little differently. But anyway, there were 2 huge presses, and they would put the cut aluminum billets in the presses, and they would have a die. It was, I don't know what kind of pressures they used, but they would push those billets through that die, and the die was anything from thresholds for doors to frames for windows, anything made of aluminum. And we had from 1 hole, which would be a larger, something larger, to 6 holes where it would push out 6 pieces at one time. And you can see here where this is where the end of the press was. And right at the press, you had a press operator. He stood right back there. Right here was called the die. If you were the person handling the dies, you were called the die header. I did that for a little while. You pull the dies out, clean them off, change them when they needed to be changed. It was a super, super hot place to work. It was usually about 110, 115 degrees at all times, and they had a swamp cooler hanging from the roof up here that blew on you all the time to keep the air moving. But they would press that through here, and out here was called the table. It was about 100 feet long, about 2 feet wide, and when they pushed that aluminum through that die, it would go out onto this table. And the first job I had was called walking the table, and you were responsible for making sure that the piece of aluminum coming out stayed under control and didn't get bowed up. And I had burns on my hands or on my arms for years, that scars from that, and it was a miserable job. And then right over here, once they came out of the die, they had a piece that would cut that off, a shear would cut that off, and then you would push it over as you walked back, and it had a rotating rack that rotated these things back and would pile them up, or not pile them up, stack them up, and then they would be shipped out this way. That's probably wondering what I'm doing. They would be shipped, they would be pushed out this way, and then this whole thing back here was shipping and receiving. This is where everything went. They would cut their pieces of aluminum to order, arrange everything, band it up, box it up, whatever they were doing, and the trucks backed right into here, and we loaded up on the trucks. They would. I never worked back here. Remember one of my friends, I think Alex Steele, worked back here. But anyway, that's where the trucks pulled in and loaded up and hauled the product out. And the press on this side did the exact same thing. You can still see all the bolt patterns in the floors where the table used to be. All the everything that went back here, and this is where all the racks would be that they just worked the opposite way here. But it was a really interesting place. I didn't like working here. Like I said, it was always very, very hot. We worked 10-hour shifts, and it was a brutal job. And I worked here for 3 months. As soon as I paid off my car that I bought from my parents, I quit and moved to Bakersfield. But a bunch of guys from Tehachapi worked here. Brad Harrington, Steve Williams, Alex Steele, Bill Decker. Bill was in maintenance. He'd go around changing light bulbs and doing that kind of stuff. And I'm sure there were other people from Tehachapi that worked here that I've forgotten over the years. So anyway, that's my little tour of the abandoned Revere Extruders Aluminum Plant in Mojave, California. I might mention it originally it was owned by Texas Aluminum, and the road back there that used to come in from the freeway was actually called Texas Avenue at one time. I guess when Texas Aluminum sold this to Revere or whatever, they got mad and changed the name to Camelot. Well, that will conclude the tour of the abandoned Revere Extruders Aluminum Extrusion Plant in Mojave, California. And hope you enjoyed it. I know there wasn't much cool machinery or anything left to show off, but it is what it is. I still wanted to show it to you guys because it's an interesting part of my history. It's part of my life. The first real job I'm glad I didn't have anymore. One of the things I mentioned about the heat at the die head, which was 115 degrees, it was actually about 110 everywhere in the plant except back at the shipping and receiving, where you were away from the machinery and the presses and the furnace and everything else. But oddly enough, once you got used to it, it wasn't that bad. And they kept little cans of Insta-freeze stuff, so when you'd burn your arm, you'd spray yourself with that, so it stopped the burn. Was probably horrible for your skin. Probably why my scars lasted so long. But anyway, interesting place to work, interesting piece of history, interesting piece of my life, and I'm glad you all joined me for it as usual. If you have any comments, please leave them. Maybe some of you people worked here, or knew people who did, or know when it actually shut down. Let me know in the comments, and as usual, if you have any ideas of other things you'd like to see, let me know, see what I can do. And like, subscribe, share. See y'all later.